right. You've all been warned. Well, hello, everybody. It's still January, and it's a cold January, but it is the last meeting of January. So we look forward to warming temperatures in February. Um, we're delighted to have Larry once again can pick up where we left off from last Zoom meeting, which I thought was really great, and it's already recorded or already pinned on our website as useful training information. So in terms of announcements, I don't have much to offer because as we know, it's early in the season, so things are a little bit more quiet. But I can speak to something coming up in February for people who want to start getting into the show circuit. Um, on February 8th, the Vintage Radio and Communications Museum in Connecticut will have swap meet. It'll be a Saturday from 8 to 1 p.m. So that will kick off our series of, let's say, vintage electronics swap meet, because of course we know the big one is March 2nd at Castleton, which I hope everyone has written down, used indelible marker on their forehead, whatever it takes. But anyway, that's about it. I don't think I have any particular announcements beyond that. Bob, did you want to say anything in particular that you want to add to this?
No, I'll just say hello to the group. Thanks to Larry for all the work he's doing. I think his presentation generated a lot of interest. John already reminded us about March 2nd for NEVEE 8. We started to plan for NEVEE 9. I signed the agreement with Castleton today, so that's March 1, 2026. So put that on your calendar now.
All right.
And hopefully we'll have a meeting of officers and directors either later this month or early February to work out the final details for
Don't worry
this
about
coming March.
But bring it down if there is.
No, that's great. That's great news, Bob. And it's actually, as a reminder, actually to the upcoming swap meet in Castleton at NEVI 8 is don't forget, if you are going to be a vendor, we get your tables, make sure you sign up for your tables. Al Perkins is already doing table assignments, and we're already posting table assignments thus far, and it'll be happening pretty regularly. I think I'm on my third update on our website. So make sure you get yourself in as early as possible, because looking at where as fortunate as we were last year, we had all 90 tables sold. So we'd love to see that happen again this year. And I think the picture, if you go to the our website and see the next event, that picture, the topmost picture, was from last year, and we had not, you can see it's filled with people and filled with vendors. It was great. It was like picture perfect. And so make sure you get in there. And I think the only other thing I'll add is don't forget, if you haven't renewed your membership, please don't forget to do that through the website, or and get that in. But otherwise, I think that's all I can think of. Did anyone have any announcements or anything they wanted to add to this? Something we may not be aware of? Any vintage electronics events or ham events or anything we should be aware of that hasn't been mentioned yet?
The only thing I could say is that we have the items have been selected for the auction at NEVEE 8. Did I say that right?
Yep.
So the items are selected, so they'll be coming out in the bulletin real soon. Or the Raven.
I think we ought to up our game a little bit and call it Neve.
Neve. Wow, how?
Yeah, well, we're the upper class vintage radio club.
Did we have to put a little strike over one of the E's, something?
The accent?
That's right, exactly.
Well, this year,
Those guys from New Hampshire, they're just a cut above the rest of us.
And don't you forget it.
well, this year it's NEV triple E. If you put the third E on there for the word 8 instead of
Oh, yeah.
number.
Oh, yeah.
Really clever.
Thank you.
I want to thank the staff for bringing back the printed newsletter as an
Very
option.
good.
I think that's really great. I enjoy the paper version. It's a pain in the neck to print it. So,
Yeah,
um,
I think you'll see it probably in about a week, the next edition,
okay, thank you.
or I
Yeah,
should say issue.
that's great. Well, that's actually good news because it seems like we've had some reasonable adoption overall on that. So it's actually good to hear that firsthand from Hugh. And
Yeah, thanks for the feedback on the newsletter. We worked with the board. We had quite a discussion about that, and we had some strong advocates for bringing it back. So thanks for the feedback.
Okay.
and also Ralph, yeah, thanks for doing the silent auction organization. The Raven will show what's going to be available, but I can say there's some good looking pieces there. So I guess everybody needs to start rubbing their hands together and
Anticipation.
exactly. And and I can speak firsthand, there's more in the queue. So,
Oh, yeah.
so,
Yeah, we're good.
so that's good news actually to
Good
see
for
that.
March 1st, 2026.
Nice.
The next
Right.
one, right? The
Right.
9th.
Yep. Exactly. Great. Well, then, my last final words would be welcome to some of the people that just snuck in here, like Tom and Art and Carl. Good to see you, and Grady. Welcome, and Joe. And so I'm going to turn over to Larry. He's going to test whether you did your homework. I could say I did not because I saw the email while I was at work.
Well, if I might be able to show it on the screen here on the cell phone, but
Oh, right. Let me give you share access in case you do decide to do that.
yeah,
Um, all right.
it'll be
Larry.
the first time I ever tried to do it from a cell phone, though. So
Right.
bear with me.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We appreciate everything you've done on this.
Okay, do I have it? Because I
You're
don't.
good. You should be good to go. I should have given you, at least I thought I did. Yeah, you should be able to share screen.
Okay.
And
Both Larrys or just one?
oh yeah, all Larry's. I am a complete total full Larry uh uh site here.
Okay. Oh, I got it. I got it. All right. So I'm going to flip the camera here to show what's in front of me. Okay, so in our last episode, we brought this radio up gently. It's upside down now, obviously, with a dim bulb. First, without the rectifier tube plugged in. So since they're series heaters, that killed all the heater voltage, which is what we wanted. And we wanted that for two reasons. We didn't want any extra current, and most of the current is going to be from the heater of the tubes lighting the dim bulb. We just wanted to see any capacitor charging current and any leakage across the high voltage supply, which would indicate a brightness in the dim bulb. However, there was a problem with my method. I had not studied the schematic well enough, okay? And when I unplugged the rectifier tube, the current to charge the electrolytics and to the B plus rail goes through the two pilot lamps in series here. So it goes from here to the plate pin, which is connected to the anode of our silicon diode. And then the cathode pin is connected to the cathode of the silicon diode. Funny how that works. And then it goes over through this 22 ohm resistor to the first, this resistor here, to the first capacitor in the filter capacitor can. Then it goes up through a 470 where does it go? No, it goes up to the output transformer, back down through the output transformer through a second 470 ohm resistor, and back to the second section of the filter capacitor. And then there's another 470 ohm resistor here going to the third section. So anyway, so what I'm getting at is the current path was through the two pilot lamps, through the silicon diode in the 35Z5 socket, over to the filter capacitors onto the high voltage rail. Okay. So that means that these guys were doing the heavy lifting when it came to charging up the capacitors. Remember, I commented I saw a flash when I first applied power, and that flash was from the pilot lights, and the dim bulbs stayed dark, and that's why. Okay, so if I want to use the dim bulb to do this in a series set like this in the future, I'm going to have to short pins 2 and 3 in my 35Z, or my tube base that holds the silicon diode, and then I will see what we expect to see in the dim bulb. That's the first thing I wanted to comment on. The next thing I wanted to comment on is I incorrectly identified this as a hot chassis set. It is not. The chassis is isolated from the line with a capacitor. So it's not as dangerous as a hot chassis set, but you can still get a tingle because capacitors carry AC. And that's why our neon bulb was lighting when I touched it to the chassis as a test. So just to show you this effect, I've put our diode here. Could you hold it and make sure the pilot lights are in view there? Right here and here. Okay, I'm going to plug it in. Watch carefully. So our pilot lights are our dim bulb. So it's going to get bright while the capacitor charges. I'm sure everybody saw that.
Yep.
So now they're out. So we either they're burnt out or our capacitors are fully charged. Okay, I'm going to unplug it again and take out our tube base with the diode in it. But now this 35Z5 that was in the set last week turned out to be bad. It turned out that this was the reason why, toward the end of the meeting last week, we found that our high voltage was low. We should have been running about, well, according to the schematic, 110 volts, and it was running at about 50 or 60 volts. And the funny thing is, this tube tested good in a Hickok made, good quality tube tester. It passed the leakage test with flying colors. It passed the test that shows adequate current going from cathode to plate or plate to cathode, depending on whether you believe in negative charge carriers or positive charge carriers. And but yet the voltage chart that I posted that shows clearly that this tube is the culprit, because I have voltage measurements both before I changed out all the capacitors in the radio and after with both tubes. And clearly the problem went with the tube, not the capacitors. All right. So once I replaced the rectifier tube with all the original capacitors, including the original filter capacitor, the set played beautifully and the voltages were about where you'd expect them. Okay. But in spite of that, since this radio is going in an auction eventually, I did what I rarely do and loath to do. I changed all the capacitors, whether they were good or not. And so you see all the ugly yellow capacitors in here. This one is the line capacitor, so it's a safety cap, a Y type Y cap. And I mounted the new electrolytics. Jim won't approve of this. He likes to I think life's too short to restuff electrolytic capacitors. I just mounted them here on a terminal strip in the back of the chassis and kind of rewired things to it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, and I left the original filter capacitor in place. So now I'm going to give the phone to Elaine. I'm going to put the good rectifier tube back in, which is a RCA pulled out of my tube stash. And I'm going to fire it up and we'll proceed to align it after it warms up a bit. We might have lost the light bulb here.
It looks that way.
But they're in series. That doesn't make any sense.
You didn't, it doesn't make any sense, but you also had two different light bulbs in the set because you didn't.
I did, but I corrected that. Now they're both 47s.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why one was brighter than the other one last week.
Yep.
Things for this year's Radio Music Award.
What I know to be true with every fiber in my being is that the President of the United States, by executive order.
So,
And visit the Bloomberg Podcast channel on YouTube to hear.
So it's pretty sensitive. That noise in between stations and the way you hear, that's in the house somewhere. And it's only being picked up with radios that have loop antennas. I verified that with one of my own radios set right by this one. They were picking up the same.
Forget I'm when a super slim iPhone will be out.
And let's see, over here, we have my trusty HP 606A signal generator set to just about 455 kilohertz. I can try to get it a little closer, but everything's kind of warming up here. How about that? Well, it's very touchy.
Yeah, it floats.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. This is close enough. Actually, the radio came peaked at about 459. So it's about 4 kilohertz off, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter at all. It's the difference is sucked up in the rest of the alignment. And we have our HP, it's an HP night here, our 410B DTBM warming up here because that's how going to be our visual indication of peaking our signal from the signal generator. So I am going to I'm going to pick up the ABC voltage at the top of the volume control pot because I looked at the schematic and that seems to be a good place to grab it. So it's going to be right here. And this is the ABC line here, going up here, and yeah, and okay, going up into the That's all right.
Hey, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Carl. I have a question.
Yeah.
I typically just use a Simpson 260 on the audio output at the speaker. You're basically emulating an S meter. Is there an advantage to that?
I don't know. It's just a matter of personal preference. In this case, for that, you can modulator, and mine is way thick, thick. So the way,
You're cutting in and out.
why would I be cutting in and out?
Uh, You're the double E.
We didn't.
Maybe,
I was
maybe he
a
talks that
finance
way.
major.
Maybe he talks that way. He's doing it purposefully.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm talking plenty loud too, so I don't know why I'd be cutting in and out. Am I okay now?
Yeah, you sound great.
Yeah.
You might have hit like a certain spot in your maybe in your house where it just this maybe the Wi-Fi signal breaks up just a tick.
That's possible. Okay, so the reason I'm not using that method, looking at the audio output, is you need to modulate the signal from the signal channel.
Okay.
And my HP 606 works great, except for the internal audio modulator. So I haven't had a chance to fix that yet. So we're doing it this way.
All right. Well, those HPs were always cheap and problematic anyway.
Yeah, right. Okay, I'm going to give the phone back to Elaine, and we're going to flip the radio over here so I can get to the top of the IF cans, because you always want to align the IFs first. Okay, I'm going to take this back. See this little appendage, yellow appendage coming out the back of the chassis
Yeah.
there?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Side that's tacked to the grid of the converter tube. The, the
Well, I think we found your breakup point there, Larry.
Okay. We didn't have this problem last week, did we?
No, actually, you were nice and clear.
Okay, I don't know what's going on, but anyhow, the alignment procedure here shows that we do the IF first, as I indicated, and these are the 4 trimmer capacitors on the top of the IF cans, which are, let's see, this is the first IF here. So the capacitors are here and here. And this is the second IF can. They're here and here. So we basically have to peak all those up. So I've got pretty high output on the signal generator here, but I could see it in the frequency counter. And we're right almost dead nuts. So, well, about as close as you can get to 455 kilohertz here. So I'm going to try a 30 millivolt output here. Give the phone back to Elaine. Going to hook up the VTVM. This is our ground. This is where you have to be super careful when you're working on a hot chassis set, because sparks can fly if you ground the chassis, which is what you're doing when you do what I just did. And here I'm going to, there's my probe for the VTVM. I'm going to put that on the other side of this clip lead that I clipped to the volume control. And now we got to inject our signal. So I clip the output of the signal generator to the other side of this cap. It's a 0.5 microfarad. It's really not critical at all. This is what they call a dummy antenna, which in this case is kind of a misnomer. It's just a blocking capacitor, basically. We're trying to get the 455 kilocycle energy from the signal generator into the IF, basically, and the easiest way to do that is through the converter signal grid. So that's the way it's typically done. So we're hooked through a capacitor to pin 6 of the 14Q7 converter. Okay, so this is what we're seeing. Okay, we're seeing a signal. I'm going to try to go down to 10 microvolts. Why, it didn't even make a difference. Why is that? Oh, because I have to use the right cable on the output of the signal generator. Okay. So let me see. Okay, so that's 100 microvolts there. And we're 4 kilohertz off frequency. That may make a difference here because we're not seeing a lot of signal. I'm going to see if I get a response here when I start diddling. So I'm going to start at the first IF. And why don't you show the meter there? Okay, so we're getting a response. That's peaked for that capacitor. Now I'll go up to the other one on the same can. Well, that made a difference. I'm going to cut the signal on the signal generator. Very sensitive.
Do they affect each other? Do you go back to the first capacitor at all, or is it pretty much independent?
Well, I'm going to do both cans, and then I'm going to go back to the first can to see if I can go through it a second time to see if I can make it. Okay, I'm on the second can now. Whoa. Whoa. Don't know what that's all about. That was quite a response. Okay, I'm going to go back to the first can. Notice we're on the 10-volt scale now. We start on the meter. We started on the 3-volt scale, and we started with a 30 microvolt input. We're down to 10 microvolts. Matter of fact, we could go to the 3 volt, go down to maybe 3 microvolts. I don't know why that didn't make a difference. Yeah, it's not really changing a lot from where we were. I think they're pretty well peaked. Yeah, I think that's about as good as it gets. So I'm going to take the signal generator off of that input. Radio still works. That's always a good sign. So now the next thing we do is we connect our oscillator to a single turn loop, loosely coupled to the loop antenna. And we're going to set the oscillator trimmer on the variable capacitor at 1600 kilohertz. So once again, I'm going to hook up my frequency counter, the signal generator, turn up the output to where I can see it on the frequency counter, and we will go to 1600. How about that? That's definitely close enough. And we're right on 1600. We like HP stuff here.
Shazam, Shazam.
Okay. I know it's got a special place in Noah's heart.
Yep.
No question.
So this is going to be our single turn loop.
And how old is that HP unit that's still dead nuts on?
Oh God, I don't know. Probably 60s.
Yep.
Then wouldn't you say it is 606?
Yep. Yep, somewhere on the order of 60 years old as a piece of test equipment.
Okay, so
That's why we didn't take trade-ins.
So cut the sense or the output way back on the signal generator. I'm going to hook the loop up to it. And I got it. They say loosely coupled. Let's see if we can. So 1600 is way. Is that what we're hearing? Yeah, I think that's what we're hearing. So. All right, so that's me changing the output of the signal generator. Let me that's almost too sensitive. Okay, so now I'm just going to make sure the oscillator section, which pretty sure is the front section of the tuning capacitor here, is peaked on that frequency because I'm set to Now I'm set dead nuts on 1600. So I'll peek that. I'm going to get more output here because I've got signals that are strong, radio signals that are stronger than what's coming out of my signal generator.
So I have a sophomoric question. Is the local oscillator 455 above the tuned frequency or below?
I'm sure it's above. I think we proved that with the spectrum analyzer last week.
Okay. That would make sense because you have a radio that's got a 455 and you're trying to receive a station below 455. So,
you know what?
Not in this particular one, but
I'm having a hard time just hearing the just a dead carrier here for my signal generator. So I'm going to switch over to an archaic signal generator whose audio oscillator still works so I can find the signal.
Hey, Larry, just looking at that signal generator when you were in close, did I see calibration dates of 62 and 63?
No, this signal generator.
No, I'm sorry, the VTVM.
Oh, the VTVM. Let's see. 67, but I calibrated the DC scales this morning myself.
Oh, okay. Well, then put it on the sticker.
So Larry, you have an audio oscillator there. Could you take that audio oscillator and feed that into your 606 as external modulation and get a modulated carrier out that way?
I probably could do that. And I thought about that. But I think the most expeditious thing is to use my standby signals. Which has a modulator in it that works.
Low bangle?
It is.
Yeah.
It's at least as old as 1936 because it was covered in that edition. It was either 35 or 36 edition I have of a radio servicing book by Girardi. They've got this thing in it.
There used to be a guy down in North Carolina that was a big collector of his stuff.
That was Ron, W4RON.
He was head of the local AWA chapter?
Yes.
Yeah. Is he still with us or has he moved on?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything from him for years.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything by him in a long time.
So I've got to hook my frequency counter up to this other signal generator here to find 1600 kilohertz. So I will do that.
for the next Zoom, we're going to fix the internal oscillator on the signal generator.
You know, if I commit to that, it'll probably get done.
Well, geez, I guess February we know what we're going to be doing, Larry.
The last time the tube was cracked.
And then in June, we're going to see how to do a deck.
Okay, so Let's see here. Okay, so this is our frequency counter output here. We got a ways to go. Am I going the wrong way? No. Getting close.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Overshot.
Overshot. Okay, that's not bad.
We'll see how stable this guy is from a cold start, huh? That's definitely close enough. So I'll leave that there. Hook our oh wait, no, we want that. We want that. Never mind. We can keep this hooked up because it's a different output. This signal generator has a high output and a low output. So where are we? Here we are. Okay. Okay, I'm going to turn on the modulation here. Probably have this thing so far up frequency. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give it lots of signal by hooking it to this loop has a primary for an external antenna. So I'm going to hook it right to that. So that hopefully I can find the signal now.
It's interesting they don't pick a mid frequency on the band, so you'd sort of split any nonlinearity or whatnot in the dial or stuff like that.
Good straight man question. Let's see who comes up with the answer to why it's always done at the highest part of the band. Even on AM car radios with the little trimmer control that sticks out of the back near where the antenna goes in, the instructions are always to tune to the highest available station as close to 1600 as you can when you make that adjustment.
All right, one of the many services I provide, being a straight man.
Okay, so I could not find the signal. So I'm going to resort to modern technology.
Oh, if I had a nickel for everybody that I knew that owns a Nano.
It's not a Nano, it's a tiny.
Oh, it's not a Nano?
Yeah, the tiny SA that I
tiny
own,
SA, okay.
Tiny SA that I have also has RF generation with internal modulation capable in it as well, so you could use that.
You know, Larry, you could sweep the generator to find out where the radio is receiving.
Yeah, I could, but the generator.
That's great.
All right, what's the answer to why we do it at 1600?
Okay, the reason you're doing it at both ends is so you get the radio to track, so that the capacitor will properly track the oscillator both from the low end up to the high end. You have to do it at both ends. So you do a capacitor on one end and an inductor on the other end, typically.
Ah. Oh, okay. So, but the alignment instructions for this only have one end, right?
I didn't copy the instruction.
That's
I
right.
copied the schematic.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't talk about a low end oscillator adjustment, only a high end.
Yeah, simple radio. Hello?
On your better radios, they have what's called a patter, and that would be your low end adjustment somewhere in the neighborhood of like 600 kc. I don't remember if this Zenith had that or not, a patter adjustment.
I don't believe it does. I think it's just the high end.
Yeah, that makes plenty of sense to do both ends.
Could I get back in here?
You may.
Okay. Interesting discussion, but I have success.
The tiny essay to the rescue.
Okay, so that's our 1 kilohertz modulation at 1.6 megs. Right on 1600. So I made that adjustment on the while you guys were chatting. So that's done. Now I'm going to turn the modulation off here.
What was the matter? The oscillator was just too far off?
No, I don't think I was getting enough signal into the radio from the other signal generator.
I see.
Because I've got this tiny SA signal generator up full tilt boogie as far as it goes to -6 dBA, and I had to put the antenna very close to the loop antenna, so it just wasn't coupling enough signal to the radio. I mean, I could hear it from the HP, but when I started adjusting the trimmer, the radio signals were so much louder than the signal generator carrier that I wasn't able to get it on frequency. Even looking at my meter, because there were so many other signals, my voltmeter was responding to those instead of the signal generator, and they were stronger. So what we've done is we've done the first and second steps of the alignment. Now we've got the local oscillator set. As you guys were saying, these inexpensive radios, tabletop radios, don't have an adjustment for the low end of the dial because they just
fixed.
Often didn't have that. You adjust at the top of the dial and you take what you get at the low end. So now all we have to do is align the RF and antenna stages, which are the two back sections of the capacitor here. And let's see if I can turn off the modulation here. Okay, so I'm moving the tiny SA antenna close to the loop. I'm going to peak the back two trimmers on the capacitor here. That's the front one. That's the RF stage. And this is the section that's across the loop. I'll go back to the other one. They shouldn't interact, but it's always a good idea. You know, that's great, except I'm supposed to be doing this at 1400 kilocycles, not 1600.
I did see that on the schematics.
And you let me proceed anyways.
Well, I should have said something, but I didn't. I thought, well, maybe you turned it down.
You made the mistake of thinking I know what I'm doing.
Well, Larry, you're doing a fine job.
Okay, so I'm going to go down to 1400 kilohertz now.
Hard to imagine that would matter a whole lot.
Probably not, but
that's to do it by the book.
Those are the directions.
Right.
So
where are we here?
So could someone explain what the detector alignment's actually peaking?
What'd you say? What's
the detector alignment actually doing? Or
that's resonating the 455 kCIF transfer, the last one, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you look on a schematic, just below the 14C7, there's a transformer in there, and it's 455. And there's one.
The detector is C5, though. It's the output of the RF tube before the converter.
I didn't read this.
Okay, so were you talking about the first detector or the second detector, Hugh?
Now the C5 one, step number 3.
Okay, yeah, okay. So that is just peaking the tuned circuit on the grid of the converter.
Okay.
Is that to C12? Am I reading that right?
C5.
C5. We're talking about the first detector, not the second detector.
Okay, the first detector. I got it. Yeah.
Now, hopefully this won't happen to anybody else, and hopefully it'll never happen to me again. But on an old radio that I picked up at a flea market, that detector screw, below that detector screw on the radio that I had picked up for $5 because it didn't work and wouldn't receive anything, it turned out that there was just a lot of good old-fashioned corrosion underneath that screw, so that things were just going like from open circuit to intermittent to who knows what value, just based on corrosion underneath that tuning screw. And I literally had to back it out a number of turns and and spray some deoxit underneath it and like try to clean underneath it before I could actually get it to work properly. These things are very old and you don't know how they were stored.
Absolutely.
I'm going to cut down my signal. What I did was I hooked the output of the tiny SA to the antenna and ground. This is actually this loop for the external antenna, a small winding on the loop antenna for an external antenna. And now I got way too much signal, so I'm going to cut it back. See how that does. Went a little more than that. Let's go to minus 20. Whoops. Okay, that'll do. So now I'll try to repeak these again now that we're at the right frequency. And let me make sure I'm peaked up on the tuning capacitor here. Okay, I am. So I'm doing the detector cap. And it looks like we're right there. The loop made a difference. Okay, well, I think we're done with the alignment. So
very good.
Let's turn off the signal generators here. And
wildfire near lockdown. A huge fire has forced mandatory evacuation for the.
The winter weather affecting area schools again on Thursday.
I don't know if we made an improvement. That's
People died. CDS
because it was working pretty good before, but the instruments tell us this is as good as it gets.
So if you have now you have two number 47 pilot lamps which are in series, and they're two of the same bulbs and not different bulbs. Why is one barely glowing and the other one's nice and bright when they're in series and they're the same bulb?
I'm thinking that when it took that hit from charging the capacitor, we shorted out part of one of them. Probably the dim one. But
Yeah.
I will go into my stash of 47 bulbs and make it right.
You know, Larry, the schematic says those are supposed to be 3.2 volt, 150 milliampere lamps.
Yeah, I didn't have those. So 47s are 6.3 volt, 150 milliamp lamps.
Yeah.
They still light pretty bright. So
Yeah.
that's going with. This is a little too bright. This isn't nearly bright enough. So I think we in going through these to charge up the filter capacitors when I demonstrated that. Before that, they were glowing equally bright, but after I did that, we got this. So I think we shorted out part of it.
Yeah, that might be because I remember at the last meeting, Larry, both the lights were lit and they were dimmer. That one's brighter than last week, the one to the right that's glowing.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that was just because of the current surge that I was demonstrating.
The show on ESPN New York.
You bet your ass it is 60 more minutes.
You bet your
ass. He said, you bet your ass it's aligned.
Well, no, I think he said from New York, he could do some DXing here and see how far away. WCFL, it's nighttime there, right? So WCFL in Chicago, that ought to come in.
Problem is, it's so noisy down here with the loop antenna.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Boston Bulldozer, weekdays 6 to 10, WRKO. Weekdays before.
Well, that needle's pointing in the wrong place for WRKO.
I was just going to say that.
Oh.
So said you align at the top of the scale, you take what you get at the bottom.
Yeah, I guess that's right. There's your today's little hit lesson.
Which would be a vote for lining at the middle of the scale when you only have one adjustment, I'm saying.
Yeah.
I may actually try that on my own time because it was reading better before. Maybe there was a reason why the IF was peaked at 459.
Interesting.
But anyway, I can go back and do that on my own time. The procedure anyway is why we were here. And I'm sure there's a lot of people on here that have done this more than I have and understand the process better. Jim being one of them, I'm sure. And he works on a lot more complicated stuff too, as I have in the past. You know, I mean, a communications receiver this vintage is quite a different beast.
Yeah, I bet it would be.
Yeah, I mean, my totally incorrect and amateurish way is to pick a known really good station at the high end of the band and tune to that, and then align the oscillator so the needle's pointing in the right place. And then I go and fiddle with the IFs and the antenna and the detector tuning just to maximize the sound quality and volume without using any test equipment. You know, the ether is my signal generator.
Yeah. You know, with a simple radio, you can definitely get away with that method. I've done that before myself. The thing that's difficult is your ear, of course, has a logarithmic response, and the meter has a linear response. Yep. So you can get it a lot closer to peak with a voltmeter than you can by ear. But you're going to be listening to the radio by ear anyway, you know, right. So you can make an argument.
My ear doesn't have any parallax either. You know, so.
I learned a trick from a guy that used to be in the New Jersey club who's now deceased, but he was a really bright guy, and I picked up quite a few things from him. And when you have a set that doesn't have a pattern, another thing you could try when you're having this kind of an alignment issue is instead of doing the IFs at 455, set them at 910. So you're actually doing the alignment on a harmonic. And then set the radio at 910 and then tweak your IFs that way. And that'll give you a better adjustment throughout the dial.
Say that again, Bob. I'm not following.
Instead of doing the alignment at 455 KC,
yeah,
do it at a harmonic, i.e. 910.
Well, what are you saying? You're still aligning the tuned circuits for 455, but you're putting in a harmonic? Is that what you're saying? Or
by doing it at the harmonic, you'll probably do a much better job at being able to get the dial pointer to point a little more accurately at the lower frequencies.
Sort of what along the lines what Hugh was suggesting, if you could do it in the middle, roughly.
I don't get it because Bob's talking about the IF. He's not talking about the local oscillator alignment.
Okay.
Correctly. So that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't understand either.
Try it on a junk radio and you'll see what I'm talking about.
I'm not sure I know what to try yet. Because you say setting at 910. I don't know. You set the signal generator at 910?
Yes.
Okay. And
align the IFs at, with that signal generator at 910.
Okay.
So you're really doing well. Actually, you could. Excuse me. I'm wrong. Set the signal generator at 455, but then do the alignment at 910.
Oh.
So in other words, find 910 on the dial.
Yeah.
Set the signal generator at 910. Find 910 on the dial first. Then set the generator 455. So in essence, you're going to try to do an alignment on a harmonic.
I've heard of that, doing that too.
Where do you feed the signal in? To the converter grid or to the antenna input?
Doesn't matter. I usually do the antenna.
Yeah, the antenna, Larry.
Okay. Because you're going to be swamping out the two circuits if you feed it into the converter grid, and it's not going to matter where your pointer is setting in that case. It's not going to.
I'm not a theory guy. I know it works though. I just that's what I picked up from this guy.
Yeah. With a car radio, I used to drive down near the Burlington area on 128. I think that was where it was, or maybe a little bit further south. It's where the tower is for WRKO. And you get relatively close to where the tower is, and WRKO is at 680. But it comes in.
Thanks.
It comes in really well at 1360 on your AM radio as you get closer to the tower. So then you can use that trimmer on the back of the car radio to get RKO to come in as best you can on its second harmonic of the carrier at 1360, and then you're really well set up for the other end of the dial when you go back to 680. It's just one of those, I've done that in the past too. It's kind of a variation on a theme myself.
I don't know about everybody else here, but my experience has been that if you have a schematic like a photo fact or anything, and it has specific instructions, that following those seems to work quite well, and that's generally where I'll go. But I try to use first of all as little coupling as a small amount of coupling as possible to get the most accurate tuning. I don't know what everybody else's experience is with that. The other thing, you mentioned that the set was tuned to 459, or it was peaked at 459. I have seen, as a matter of fact, there's a Rider's How It Works manual that talks about certain sets where people would, instead of tuning at 455, would tune off or peak off of that because of a station that was nearby that was on a harmonic, like a 910, that people wanted to listen to, and the IF actually there would be basically oscillation, and it would heterodyne with the station. But anyway, I don't know what everybody else's experience is, but I try to stick with what the instructions say. I tend to find that it works best.
Yep, I agree. I always try to do that too, except like in this case where we actually lost calibration at the bottom of the dial and have to go to a plan B. But hopefully that doesn't happen.
This was really good. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, absolutely ditto.
It was fun.
Good lesson there, Larry. Really appreciate it.
Larry,
I
have a question.
Yeah.
One question. So at the beginning, you said, take care with these non-isolated chassis. But you didn't mention what you did. Do you have like an isolation transformer?
No, what I did was, first of all, this chassis is isolated from the line with a capacitor, so it's not strictly a hot chassis set.
Okay.
Like I said, you could get a tingle from it. But what I did was I put a polarized plug on it and wired it so that when the radio was turned on, the not the chassis, but the B minus, the negative rail is connected to the neutral. Last time I demonstrated that when you turn the switch off, then the chassis is, in my case, connected through a capacitor to the hot end of the line through the tube heaters. So it's kind of like pick your poison, right? Either the chassis with a true hot chassis set, either the chassis is going to be hot when it's on or off. So a polarized plug isn't going to save you.
Can you show exactly what you did to put that capacitor on, the safety capacitor?
Yeah, well, I can show you where it is, where it's located.
Yeah. Because I'm still learning this stuff.
It just C10 on the schematic, I think, is what he substituted with a real capacitor rather than the old days.
Yeah, C10. Yeah, that's C10, and it says 0.07, but the capacitor that was in there was a 0.05, so I replaced it with a 0.05.
Oh, I see.
But anyway, let me flip my camera here.
So, safety capacitors are designed to fail open if they're going to fail rather than shorted.
Right.
Whereas in the old days, they just stuck a capacitor in there, which would fail however it wanted to.
Yeah, I debated whether to use a safety capacitor here, but there's no current flowing through it. No one's going to ground the chassis of this radio. It's in a wooden cabinet, so right. I just used a regular capacitor, and this is it right here.
Yeah. Oh, it's not the square one off to the right?
No, that's the one that's actually connected across the line. Okay.
Gotcha.
I debated using a safety capacitor here as well, but I only have one size of safety capacitor. They're 0.015s, and plus I didn't think it was really necessary in this case because no one's going to ground this chassis, and there's no current or voltage even across that capacitor. So, it's in a wooden cabinet. There's no voltage across it. It's the chances of it failing in our lifetime or our kids' lifetime is like slim to nil.
You'll be gone before anyone you know dies from that. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I think you got to kind of use judgment with these things.
Yeah.
When it's going across the line, absolutely, I use a safety capacitor. Yeah. And in some radios, it's across the line anytime the radio is plugged in. In this one, it's only across the line when the set's turned on.
So those are X caps across the line, right? And Y caps are the ones to ground?
That's what they say, but I think I read somewhere that you can use one for both applications. I know I read that, and I forget which way it goes. X is universal or Y is universal. I forget. Anybody know?
I believe it's Y, Larry.
Yeah, that's what I remember. No. And this is a Y cap, so that's a good thing.
If I could, I just want to add a couple, just since we're talking about live chassis, just a couple best practices, and I'd like to hear other people's comments on it. Like Larry said, it's in a wooden cabinet. The chances of anybody getting blasted from this are pretty low. But when it's on the bench, I tend to use that kind of neon bulb test that Larry did to make sure, because I have some old test equipment, I want to make sure before I go, let's say for my signal generator or my signal tracer connecting the ground, I like to use the neon bulb test to make sure there's no potential difference or AC between the two pieces of equipment. In other words, between the equipment and the radio, because sometimes depending upon how the radio is plugged in, you can have 120 volts with respect to the ground lug on your signal tracer or signal generator. And sometimes reversing the plug, if you haven't put a polarized plug on, takes care of that. So I just like to use either a meter or, like I say, a neon bulb to check between my test equipment before I connect the test equipment up to the radio itself, just to make sure. Because that's one place where you can get a shock if you touch a piece of your test equipment. Like I said, I have a very old ICO signal generator and an old Lafayette. I'm sorry, a Lafayette signal generator and an ICO signal tracer, and some other old equipment that you could end up with potential between the set and the piece of equipment. So,
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I do the same thing when I'm connecting equipment, make sure that uh, the everything is at the same potential. It's not lighting the neon bulb.
Say, Larry, according to the internet, the X capacitors go across the line and Y capacitors go line to ground.
Right. I knew that, but the question was one type, X or Y, can be used in place of the other, and I forgot which type it was. I I I don't want to give out misinformation here. I think it's Y is the one that can be used as an X capacitor, and Howard seems to remember the same thing.
I'm pretty sure, but I mean, it. You just got to make sure you're referring to the capacitor rating itself. I'm pretty sure that the Y could be used for either, and the X you kind of don't want to. And it has something to do with. I wish I had the white papers. I had a whole paper on that whole subject. But that's yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Y.
Yeah, so just confirmed that on chat. Isaiah Washburn said, my mic isn't working, but yes, that is correct. A Y can be used for X or Y applications. And that also explains that that's all I have in my stock, because I remember buying the Ys for that reason.
I think according to the internet too, apparently it has to do with the voltage rating.
Yep. So I forget what these are, but I think they're 250 maybe. Let me see if I can read it.
Well, that'd be 250 AC, certainly.
Yeah, 250.
Correct.
Right.
But they're probably 600 or something.
The print's too small. I can't see it.
All of this is just to keep the people of the UL test labs busy. When you go in with your equipment to get it certified, make sure you have the right capacitors. And
yeah, no kidding.
Filter and all that.
It says 250 AC.
Yeah.
So we confirmed some things. We got some questions answered regarding the safety caps. I mean, in the old days, they didn't have safety caps. They just used regular old wax paper caps. But probably if they knew what they were doing, they'd use at least capacitors with a 600 volt DC rating. But I've seen them fail spectacularly.
Yeah, I've found a few remnants of exploded bumblebees, that used to be serving in that capacity because they didn't have the correct caps back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. One in my transoceanic lost its smoke once, and I also had one of those pilot tuners. I know you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Little pilot FM tuner.
You got a couple of them.
Yeah. I've got one of those, and I had the line cap fail and fill up the room with smoke and that. Now, we got another text from Isaiah Washburn here regarding X and Y caps. He says, here are the different classes for X and Y safety caps, and he gave a couple links. So if anyone's interested in doing further reading, The links are there. So is there anything else? I think I'll see if I can make the tuning track a little better and fix the pilot light issue that I created and put it back in its cabinet. Bring it down to Ralph at Nevi along with some other sets I've got here, and it won't go in this year's auction, but it'll probably go in next year's, I would think.
That's
Sounds terrific. Larry, did you want to say anything about that nice chart you had put out earlier that you gave homework for?
Oh, yeah, I think I already did.
Oh, I guess we didn't. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, my answer to that quiz was going to be, it looked like from the chart that somewhere between 95 and 98% of the problem was the rectifier tube, and it probably didn't need a recap. That only took care of like 3 to 5%.
Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering why the before recap voltage was higher than after recap with the new tube, unless that was a typo or something, but that's a little strange.
There's always, in real data, in the real world, there's always noise in the data that are due to other factors. Maybe the line voltage was a little higher than, maybe I was looking at the meter cross-eyed. Who knows, you know? But it's you know, the important response was to the rectifier tube, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, you know, on the old capacitors might have been higher in value too. Sometimes when they go bad, the capacitance goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes wherever. But maybe the capacitance was even higher, which caused a higher voltage.
Well, and I was thinking also, just trying to get really wacky, that, you know, if you're replacing old wax paper capacitors with new technology, maybe even the ESRs of the capacitors were different enough to make, you know, a difference depending on where they were in the circuit.
Right. Yeah.
Not by a lot, but by some of the noise type level stuff that you're seeing on the chart.
Yeah.
Yep.
There seems to be a lesson in don't get too carried away about the exact voltages of these circuits, though.
Exactly.
Plus or minus a football field usually works. But
Yeah.
I made a signal. I made a career out of analyzing data and separating signal from the noise, and I learned how to do that pretty well. So I don't pay a lot of attention to the noise.
You didn't do any random resistor checking while you were in there, did you? Just for laughs? Seems like carbon resistors just go all kinds of places when they're old.
Yeah, I measured all the resistors, and
oh, you did?
If not intolerance, they were definitely close enough to where it wouldn't make any difference in the functioning of the set. I think they pretty much were all intolerance, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
Yeah, Zenith makes a really, really good radio. Those radios are very, very sensitive. In fact, the numbers Larry was getting were pretty, I wouldn't say amazing, but they're certainly pretty, they're awfully good. So I don't know what they do. I don't know if it's a transformers or what the heck they do, but the Zenith radios are very, very sensitive.
Yeah, they're good radios. I love my transoceanic, my G500. It's been sitting by my bedside since I was a freshman in high school.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Elaine still lets me keep it there.
Nice.
As long as it's your side of the bed, not hers.
Actually, it used to be. Now that we moved, it's on her side.
Hey, great job, Larry. I've got to go to another meeting here coming up
Yeah.
soon. So great job and certainly enjoyed it, and have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, you can do it next time, Jim.
Yeah, but you know, I got to have a little different take on the test equipment, though. That's the only. Anyway, I do have the analog 606, which is very, very good. But then you have to have the accurate down to the hertz signal generators too for some of this stuff. But anyway, great job, Larry. We'll catch you at least on Friday too on the net.
Yep. A Zenith All-American 6 just isn't one of those subjects that needs that kind of accuracy.
Yeah, I agree 100. You know, the other comment too about just lining the radio by listening to a station, and I think it was brought up too before. On a radio like this, you can get away with it, but you get into some other radios and you start tuning it up by ear, and just you go off the deep end sometimes. So you can't. Some of the stuff you can do that way, and other stuff you really have to pay attention and use some really good test equipment to get the thing right. But it's nice to have a radio like this that you can, just like you said, just almost do it by ear.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, see you Friday, Larry.
Okay, see you Friday.
Bye. Yeah, bye.
See you, Jim.
Bye. Well, I'm going to get out of here too.
Well, that was great, Larry. Really appreciate all the effort for the 2 consecutive meetings.
Sure, no problem. I hope everybody found it fun.
Absolutely. No, you know, you don't get this opportunity to do this live troubleshooting. You know, it's really, I think everybody learned a lot from this. So thanks for all your trouble. Thank you, Elaine, for being such a patient and willing camera person and helper.
Yeah, she's back upstairs at this point.
That's all right.
I'll pass it along.
That's all right. She did her marathon stint in the first meeting.
Yeah.
But well, then if nobody has anything else we want to bring up, or you know, bring up to Larry or anything in general, we can close the meeting a little bit on the early side comparatively, and give you guys a little bit of 30 minutes time to absorb what you just have seen in the past 90 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Larry.
You're very welcome. It was fun.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks very much. All right, guys.
Good night.
Stay well. Good seeing all these faces. We had a terrific crowd as always.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thanks.
Take care.
All right, guys.
Okay. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.